Hey there legends, welcome to this week's Friday Q&A. As always, if you've got questions for next week, you can ask me absolutely anything, just get them in the comments below. We are going to delve into this week's questions. What are my thoughts on stainless steel frets, and in particular what size fret wire do I use? I'd have to answer that in reverse order. Fret wire, the 6105 or 6100 stuff I think is really good. I've had a bunch of my guitars refretted with the Jazzcar. A Jazzcar is something you would play jazz in. Yeah, the Jazzcar fret wire, and I really like the Jazzcar stuff. It's pretty awesome. I'm actually getting one of my guitars refretted with stainless steel frets at this very moment by Tim at MT Guitars here in Perth. So hopefully within the next week or two I'll be able to put up a demo video with that and basically just talk about it. It's one of my cool old 80s guitars that's getting a big refurb. So yeah, I'm pretty keen to try it. I do have stainless on a couple of my other guitars. My Warmoth Tele parts caster has stainless, and I've had that guitar for like 6 or 7 years, and it's hardly, there's hardly any fret marks or anything. So yeah, I like it. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison between, stainless steel fret wire and regular fret wire, or Dunlop versus Jazzcar, but that might make a pretty cool comparison video. It would be a lot of work though, so yeah, maybe some ideas for content coming up over the rest of the year would cover those things. Mark Pritchard asks, I've never seen you play an acoustic guitar. Do I own one? And do I play them much? Well, I do. As you can see, this is a 12-string, an old Guild. It's actually my dad's guitar, but it's pretty rad. In regards to acoustic guitars, I own a couple of them, and I play them all the time. I probably do more acoustic gigs every year than I do electric gigs. A lot of duo stuff, and a lot of stuff where I use my acoustic together with the looper in my AX8 and sort of make beats and stuff like that, and do those kind of things. So if that's something that would interest you guys in basically seeing how I do that stuff live, I'm happy to do a tutorial on it at some point in the future. But yeah, I do spend a lot of time playing acoustic guitar. I actually like playing my electric guitars unplugged a lot as well. There's something about that really nice, bright sound that they've got going on, and yeah. Oh, my main acoustic as well, if you want to watch some demo content with it, I've got a couple of videos up. You just have to scroll back. It is a Headway made in Japan, and it's a really lovely guitar, so go and check those vids out if you want to see me do an acoustic thing. So, Christopher T. Question about Jake Ely's flanger settings and how to recreate those on the AX8. To be honest, man, I have absolutely no idea. For some reason, flanging is one of those effects I use very rarely. I do have a block that I shared a while back based around my favorite flanger settings. I like the analog mono flanger in the AX8. And I mean, it's kind of like explaining how flanging works, right? So a chorus, as opposed to a flanger, the main difference is that a flanger has a feedback circuit. So a chorus is essentially a short delay where you modulate the delay line, so it makes it slightly out of tune with the main one, and you mix that back in. If you add feedback to that circuit, you can create a flanger. And in terms of that particular Ibanez Flanger, the regen, I imagine, would be the feedback. The D time would be the delay time, and then the speed would be like the modulation rate. So if you go into the AX8, basically pick any flanger block. Like I said, I really like that just straight up analog mono in front of the amp. And play around with the delay times. Flangers often have very fine delay times as well. Like, you can, we're talking about 0.01 millisecond increments and stuff like that, which the AX8 can do. So that's a something to play around with. And yeah, essentially, so if it's at about 5 o'clock, that would be delay time pretty high. So try like close to the maximum delay time on the AX8, and also try the regen, I guess, kind of low if it's at 10 o'clock. And I will try to cover this in a future video and maybe have a look at the flanger block in the Fractal stuff and actually make some tones and recreate some classic tones. That would be pretty cool. Any possibility of a collaboration with Ryan from Plague Scythe Studios? This is something that I think would work really well, because I stumbled across his channel a little while ago, and I was watching it and I was like, man, I really like this guy's videos. And yeah, I basically watch everything that he does, and we actually chat to one another quite a bit over WhatsApp. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas of content you would like to see us cover, maybe yeah, get them in the comments and start bothering him, and maybe we can get around to it at some point. Because yeah, we literally live on the opposite side of the world to one another, but thanks to the magic of the internet, a collab would be pretty wicked. And yeah, anyway, if you're not already subscribed to Ryan's channel, go and check out Plagueside Studios, because his content is always fantastic and it just keeps getting better. And he is easily one of my 5 favorite YouTubers, whatever the hell that means, and whatever the hell my opinion matters anyway, but go check him out because he's great. Okay, to get a Fractal AX8 to work, I'm assuming you mean to make sound through a speaker cabinet, so this would apply to most modeling devices. The only exception that I can think of would be the powered Kemper, because that's obviously got a power amp built into it, but stuff like the AX8 and the Helix and the Atomic, you would need some kind of power amp. An EHX Magnum 44 is a great small solution. I personally use a rack mount Matrix GT800, which is one of the best sounding rack mount, clean, modeler-friendly power amps. So I could highly recommend those. The Seymour Duncan Power Stage is another one if you want something that can be put on your pedal board as well. And the Quilter Tone Block is another one that's really popular. So essentially you need an amplifier. So you could use the AX8 like a preamp. You connect it to an amplifier, you can connect it to a guitar cabinet, and from your AX8 to your power amplifier, you can use a standard audio cable, but then when you are going from the power amplifier to the cabinet, you need a speaker cable. There are exceptions to this. If you're using a powered full range monitor, I would just go straight from the AX8 into the powered full range monitor, essentially a powered speaker, and you can bypass that speaker connection. But whatever you do, do not connect a standard guitar cable from an amplifier to a speaker cabinet. That's not going to work. You need a speaker cable. How about using a stereo chorus pedal to thicken up a guitar sound a la John Sykes? Well, I love John Sykes and I love his sounds. I'll give you an example of 2 different things. One is a stereo chorus pedal. Well, actually, it's a stereo chorus block in the Axe effects. And what I've done here, if you want to get that widening effect, is set the rate really low and turn the depth up. So that's kind of the trick there. And I've also done a similar thing, which I imagine John probably did in the studio using probably a pair of Eventides, is a stereo detune effect. So you slightly tune one side up, say by about 8 cents or 8% of a semitone, and you tune the other side down, pan them hard left and right, you get this huge stereo image. It sounds like this. So most of my presets don't feature a noise gate on the AX8. The reason being, or the XFX3 or the Atomic or the Helix or whatever, most of those units do have a built-in noise gate at the input that I like to use. I generally don't like gates after like the gain stage, because I've just played noisy amps for so long. I'm so used to rolling off my volume control to stop hiss and things like that. So yeah, basically I just use the input gate. Normally I set the attack and release as low as they will go, and I'll set the ratio to around like 3 or 4. So nothing too extreme, but if you really want the kind of periphery, you know, muty, glitchy kind of thing, a gate before all your gain with like a ratio of like 20, and same thing afterwards, and adjust the threshold to taste, and you can do that glitchy thing really, really easily with 2 gates. I don't recall seeing a 5150 on your channel. I have done a few videos with one, I want to say maybe 18 months, 2 years ago. It's all based around different boosts in front of the 5150. They're short videos, so you can, if you just search Leon Todd PV5150, I'm sure they will come up. I really, really like that particular 5150 that I use. I think it's a Mark II, or a 5152, whatever they call it. Belongs to my buddy Troy, and yeah, we did some recording with that amp, and basically I remember we did a couple of takes of one track, I forget which one it was, and then blew the amp up, and it was one of those things where I was playing and I was like, oh my god, this is the sound, this amp sounds amazing. And then we blew the amp up and didn't use it for the rest of the sessions, which is a real shame because it sounds great, and it's since back to working order. The 5150 I find, like, because it's based, loosely based around like a Soldano circuit, I get on really well with it because, you know, I own the Soldano Hot Rod 50. I'm going to my grave with that amp, mostly because I just paid a stupid amount of money for it years ago that I'll never be able to recoup. But yeah, I'm very comfortable with the sort of that, using that particular style of gain structure. And you know, it seems like 5150s have this reputation, as you say in the comment, of just being these, like, you know, metalcore machines or gent machines. But yeah, you know, they're really, really versatile amps, and you can get lots of different tones out of them. So I'll have to revisit them. I think that pedal show did a thing on, like, they were using a 5150, and they got some interesting sounds out of it. And that was pretty hilarious to watch those guys, you know, just be like, oh my god, what do I do with, like, an amp that actually has gain? Imagine that as a novelty, an amp with gain. Is Ragdoll planning to do a covers album? There's no plans at the moment. We have recorded a bunch of covers that we have never released or finished. Probably the only cover we have put out is, you can go and look at a version of Robin Trower's Fool and Me that we did live. We know loads and loads and loads of covers, and, you know, playing in regional Australia, we basically do 3 or 4 hour sets where you know, we play a bunch of our original material, we play a bunch of classic rock, a bunch of metal, a bunch of soul and stuff like that, and a bunch of blues, and we kind of do a little bit of everything. I think if we were to do a covers album, though, we would exclusively do smooth yacht rock tunes in the style of, you know, Michael McDonald and Christopher Cross. So maybe one day that would be a thing to do. What does it say? Swords and Tequila by Riot. Riot? Yeah! I haven't heard about that band for a long time. I might have to go and listen to some Riot on the interwebs after I do this. Yeah, that's my kind of music. I don't think I've actually heard that particular song, but I remember listening to them back when I had Kazaa and I was trying to download 80s metal songs. So that's pretty awesome. If you like Riot, go and listen to a band called Black Torah. They're incredible. Any experience recording with a Mesa Mark Series amp? I don't, but I have been tracking my solos with the Fractal Mark II C Plus emulation. I haven't done a lot of rhythm stuff with it, just for the fact that what we're doing with Ragdoll, it sort of doesn't... I need a bit of flub in the low end to fill out a bit of space, playing in a 3-piece basically, so the Mark Series thing isn't perfect, but I really, really, really want to demo one. There's actually someone who has a Mark V that I've been meaning. They offered to lend it to me here in Perth, and if they're watching this, I'm sorry. I got really sick at the end of last year, and I didn't get a chance to do it. And this month's been crazy, so hopefully at some point in the next month, I'll go and grab one, and I will definitely try to do a little mix video with it and some tips. And yeah, because they're really interesting amps. The way you have to set the pre-EQ and the graphic EQ, and I mean, they sound amazing in the Fractal, so I imagine they would sound amazing in real life as well. Tutorial using 2 amps and the Axe-Fx. Oh, yes, definitely, definitely. This is something I've been planning for a long time and something I've slowly been working on. I'm trying to get through this series I'm doing on all the vintage Fender amps in the Axe-Fx 3, so maybe when I've done that, I will do something on dual amp combinations. One of my main recording presets, though, uses the Uberschall, which I've kind of got set up for a super, like, you know, sizzly, chunky rhythm tone, and then the Atomica, which is way more of a mid-heavy, classic sort of 80s style amp, and I'm blending those two together. If you look up my recording preset on YouTube, you can go and watch that video and get a little bit of a taste for how I like to use 2 amps, because it's basically a way, if you think, what is it, like 250 amps in the Axe-Fx, and then you do dual amp stuff, it's kind of like 250 squared combinations, which is a lot of stuff. And then the amount of blend, and ooh, it's a juicy topic. I've got a few things I definitely want to cover on that. So far, you have refused to show us your barbecue. What am I trying to hide? Alright, I got nothing to hide. Let's look at my barbecue. Right, we got some cats. And we got another one. A racket. Here it is. This is a, bloody, what's the spec on this one? Some kind of Weber. It's a Weber. It really looks like it needs a clean. It's got a little barbecue cozy on it, and yeah, there you go. Look at that. That's my barbecue, and sometimes I cook things on it. Should I do a cooking show? I don't think that's a good idea. Do I prefer different amps and settings based on the guitar that I'm using? 100%. Part of the fun, I think, of owning a bunch of different gear, and definitely a reason why I own a bunch of different gear, is sometimes, you know, say you're playing a Strat through a Marshall and it's giving you a very particular thing. If you then plug in like a Les Paul or a PRS, what the guitar is doing is shaping the pre-gain structure of everything, and the amp is kind of shaping the rest, obviously with the speaker cabinet and the microphone, that goes without saying, but out of that combination of guitar and amp, I always see that as like the guitar is the tactile interface, and the amplifier is like the machine that you're trying to drive, and different combinations can yield radically different results, especially in vintage amps. Like my JTM 45 almost sounds like a beautiful Fender Bassman. I guess it's based off a Fender Bassman when I play it with a Strat. But when you hit it with like a guitar with really high output pickups, it overdrives the preamp and you just get this different thing altogether. So with the Axe effects, it's so easy to just basically say, hey, here's a preset that I've set up with one amp model for this guitar. I will then dial it in with another guitar and just save the preset, and that's pretty amazing. Okay, what do I think are some of the weakest models in the Fractal? And people seem to think there's not good vintage tones in there. Well, they're wrong. The vintage Fenders especially, I'm doing a video series on that at the moment, they sound incredible. I think they're actually probably the strong point of the unit. I haven't heard anything else, and recently I've literally tried the big ones, the Atomic, the Helix, the Kemper, shot them all out in my studio. And yeah, I think the Fractal Fenders are some of the strongest points of it. I would just say that I think if I had to pick a weak point with the amps, it would just be amps that I would never use in the real world for whatever reason. And you know, stuff like the Two-Rock amps, they do a really good job of being a Two-Rock amp. I just don't particularly like that sound. So for me, it's something I would never use. Not saying that the modeling is weak. I think the modeling's pretty much spot on. The one weak point with it is it would be great to have more bass amps, but from what I understand, that's something they're actively trying to sort of work on. We recently got a Portaflex added to it. They updated the SVT, and there's some pretty strong rumors that there's going to be like a Sun Model T, which is pretty awesome because I actually want to use that thing on guitar. So yeah, maybe the weak point is the fact that it doesn't have like every single amp everybody ever wants. I'd love to hear a PRS Archon in there. I'd love to hear an 88 MP1 in there. I'd love to hear a Marshall DSL in there. That would be pretty awesome. And a few other like boutique-y things, but the MP1, the DSL, right at the top of the list for me, as well as the Archon. That would be pretty cool. But the actual modeling, I don't think has a weak point. I think it sounds amazing. So I've noticed that you play a lot in drop C. Does it allow me to write and play things differently, or is it basically because Ryan's more comfortable in that range? It's something which sort of evolved organically for me. It's not like a thing that I obviously feel really comfortable playing in drop C now, but it's something I didn't do for a long time. This is maybe the last 4 years I've been using that tuning. And that just came from when we started playing with Ragdoll. Ryan was a lot more comfortable singing in E flat. Really suits his voice. And as we sort of went on, just the sound of the band got heavier, and then I'd never explored drop D before, and I started writing some songs in drop D, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. And we started basically having most of the set in, I guess, in drop C sharp. And then, yeah, it was like halfway through a tour of the States where we were playing, and we both kind of said, hey, you know, should we just try go down another semitone to drop C and just see how it sounds for a gig, just for fun? I think because we were doing so many shows as well, we thought it might help his voice out as well. And we did it once, and we were like, man, it sounds chunky, it sounds great. And it's got a sort of different tonality going on with the guitars that I use anyway. So yeah, it was more just a it was one of those things, a happy accident. We just tried it once and really liked it, and just kind of stuck with it. And I think it sounds heavy, and it really makes you want to like play a certain way, and it makes the strings slinkier. So if I want to do like two-tone bends, I can do it. And people go, oh my god, how do you do those two-tone bends? It's like, yeah, dude, I'm playing 10s in drop C. It's pretty slinky. Alright, for the lick of the week, we're going to stick with the John Sykes kind of thing. I've got my Greco Sykes style, pimped Les Paul style guitar. Let's just put the camera over there. I might turn my guitar volume down a little bit. This is a lick that I play all the time, and it's based around a really simple 6-note sequence. Let's say we're in E minor, so we're using the notes E, F sharp, and G on the top string. It should sound like this. And then the sequence is going to be, you play the middle note, so in this case F sharp, then the lowest note, so, and then we go back up F sharp and G, and then back down F sharp and E. That's pretty much it. That's the lick. I'm going to get a different pick. I really like these little Tortex Jazz 3s. They're super cool. What is this? The 1.35 mil for all the pick nerds out there. So that's a sequence, and you can just practice that. And then just take that across one string through the E minor scale. So the frets there, the E minor scale, you'd be utilizing open, 2, 3, 5, 7, then 8, 10, 12, and then obviously 12, 14, 15. So the little sequence would be centered around that 14th fret, then 12, 10, and 14. What is that? 8, 10, 12, then 7, 8, 10, then 5, 7, 8. Then 5, 3, and 7. And I double it up so. Just think of his soloing Crying in the Rain, which kind of does this. I've got no idea if that's how he actually plays that solo, but when I want to fake that solo, that's what I do. So I just play the crap out of that sequence. And yeah, I figured it might be cool to do some, oh, I got a message on my computer. How cool is that? Might be a cool thing. Some of you guys seem to really love John Sykes. If you're an Axe-FX 3 user, I have a Sykes preset. If you're an AX8 user, I've also got a Sykes preset. Yeah, it's pretty rad. Just put on that like huge vibrato that he has, really wide and slow. The Dirty Fingers pickup that I've got in this really goes a long way to that kind of sound. And if you can cop, why am I doing this? Like, I just should have set my camera up better. If you can cop an emulation of like a Mesa Mark III, I think he was using, or maybe like a Mark II C+, the Coliseum heads, led to believe. And yeah, that's kind of the vibe, man. Play some Sykes. Thank you guys so much for watching this week's Q&A. If you got questions for next week, get them in. And in the meantime, play to sleep.